Yo, welcome again to another episode of Great Talk Podcast, where we talk about the business of creativity, everything that has to do with, the back end, even the front end of, the life of a creative. And we bring in like amazing guests, people who are doing stuff in the creative industry, from entrepreneurs to business managers to, lawyers, whatever it is, that you can think of, even founders, tech founders and whatever. And today we have an amazing guest. He's my brother. In fact, he's my daughter's godfather.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, even though he feels that he's but amazing guy. And his industry is somewhat very interesting. I can't wait for you guys to hear about what he does and how he does it. And today we're going to be having my very good brother, Damilola Aderemi.
Yeah. Oh,
Thanks for coming, man.
we live together.
Thank you. Interesting guy. Interesting guy.
Yeah.
Yo, so that means thanks for coming. Thanks
Yeah.
for honoring our invite. I think it was quite short notice. Is it short?
Not that sure. Because you already told me before now.
Yeah.
You told me a while back, but then you're not set dates.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So what's good?
God bless. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. My pleasure.
Yeah. So to open up this whole thing, can you just tell us about yourself? Tell us about like from your background to where you are. Just give us things that people don't know
Oh my goodness.
about you.
Like in relation to work.
Yeah, in relation to work basically. So because also we're here for like
Yeah.
creativity. So work and whatever it is, so like you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, so I would say that I've always been passionate about both creativity and business, at the same time. All the way back. All the way back from, I think the story that comes to mind now, I just remembered now, like was in probably it was in secondary school. Yeah, it was secondary school, maybe SS2, SS3. So one of the very creative things that I did then was the SS3 boys. They used to, SS3 boys now will be dating SS2 girls. So the SS2 boys, they don't have any power for the SS2 girls. The SS3 boys just to date them. So it seems to now cause, rifts in the class, boys in the classes to beef the girls in the class. I was in this SS2 class. And so when I was taking up writing at that time, but I had not written anything serious.
Yeah.
So the boy just said, damn, you must do something. Although that time I was not even called Dammy, like John, my middle name. Yeah, John was my middle name. It wasn't my first name that time. It was when after secondary school, I now made it my middle name. So I said, John, must do something. Okay. So we now got together, and I went home one day, like after school, and I went to write like one long essay, kind of poem, kind of thing. Codedly yabbed all the girls in the class, but without mentioning their names inside. So when you read it, you know that I'm talking about Fumi, I'm talking about Sandra, I'm talking about Shadows Wine, everybody. Kind of like alluded to some of the SS3 boys too. I don't know. I mean, I bought it to class. I used typewriter to typewrite. Yeah, not even me actually. My friend had typewriter, so I kind of like wrote it down and I gave my friend in a typewriter many copies. And I brought it to class and I distributed to everybody in the class. See, class scatter. Class scatter. Everybody, guys, just they happy, they laugh, they bounce, they shout. The babes just quiet. Before when this was a big issue, they started reporting to teacher, principal calling people to the office. Nobody was going to review who wrote it. Everybody was just quiet. Nobody knew. So eventually, principal carried the boys come outside, flog everybody. One person don't go cast me for principal. Then some guy go carry their parents come. Walai, big matter. They carry out. I don't keep it. So that was like way back where I did man. And because it was humorous, it was funny, but it was also very witty, very sharp. So that was where I think I started dabbling into some kind of funny or humor of anything at any point. But I think once I got into university, I didn't really do any of that. And I didn't really do anything humorous or funny like at all. I was doing like public speaking and debates, and then doing like some small businesses just to, things were not really easy at home. So, I set up stuff. So public speaking debate, I think I had won a competition on campus. I got a camera, and then that camera, and I started taking pictures of students that want to do ID card. So normally if you go to like a place to go and do ID card, the normal stores, all the guys do it on campus. Maybe they'll go charge you 250 or 300 because I might get camera. I don't need to use any background, any studio. I could just use one wall for my hostel. So now UI, I went to UI now. So I'll just bring them to my hostel, snap them there. Now collect 150 instead of go pay 250. Oh my, just the gather. Yes. I just the gather before I got to get collect contracts for like departments, like faculty. I just gather money. That whole semester I no call out so.
You just be
My friend they shock. They say wait one I never this time ball. I mean ball like 150 like this. Collect. So that was me. That was the beginning of me. So all through the university I was doing like communication, public speaking, debate, but I also like doing business on the side. So I think it was after I'd finished school and then I got into my first job was at a church, church I stay at, City Church Lagos. I got here as the first staff.
you know what?
Yes. So I first staff, but I was employed as a creative director at the church. Long story how I kind of ended up there. So being there, I also now started preaching at the church. Right. So I started preaching. Yes. Church boy. I've always been a church boy. So always preaching at it. So it was there people that started to tell me, man, I'm blessed by the word though. But I always like the way that you communicate. Like there seems to be a lot of humor, funny. We they enjoy the word they eat us, but we also they make us laugh. I say, yeah, funny like that. Okay, but I sort of now remembered some of the funny moments back that secondary school story and all that, but it's not really big. So me and I got curious and say, normally humor and jokes and jesting is not really something that people are excited about in church. People always think of idle talk. People always think of coerced language and all that. So I started to read more, engage. There's not a lot of stuff that I've written about what God thinks about humor and jokes and all that, but I found a few. And I thought, man, God loves humor now. It's not bad now. Okay, what does this look like? What if I don't want to use this humor in church just to serve God or to preach? What if I wanted to be a comedian outside the walls of the church? So I started going to comedy clubs. I started visiting comedy shows, and I was watching stuff online. But I watch a lot of stuff online, but I went to comedy clubs. And I said, man, maybe I can do this thing. I know I can try this thing. So I decided to try stand up. I think now the first time I did stand up was probably in 2018, I think the first time. So it was at African Artists Foundation. They were doing like this Lagos Photo Festival.
Okay.
So they did like an open mic. So you can come, you want to sing, you want to do poetry, you want to do comedy. I said, let me go. So I wrote like a set on photography. Right, and I went there and kind of like, did my thing. It was actually a very good one. People were there, wow, brilliant. Some comedians too came. Yeah, some comedians came. They said, wow, brilliant stuff. Like your stuff is unique, breath of fresh air. I said, makes sense. So that was a good one. But the second time I performed, man, was a disaster. It was a brilliant, like, think of TED Talk, but the worst TED Talk you ever listened to. And I carry my fiancé come, I carry his sister come, I carry one of my friend come, I carry my guys come.
Like you thought it was
Yes. The comedian we don't see me for that my first performance. So then came. The TED guy said, before I went up, but they said, this guy is the next best thing in comedy. They don't hype me finish. So that's why I climb stage and start my TED Talk. Before I finish my TED Talk, the guy wey don dey hype me, I never see him. Shame don't kill him, he don't come out. So after that performance, I never knew anything stand up for like 6 months. I don't learn. But that's like sort of.
What did your fiancé say?
I even tested it before I went on stage with her. I call her, she said, oh man, it's so funny. She said, wow, good jokes, wow, brilliant. But I love now. They encourage me. So it kind of works. So, but after that second performance, I decided to come stand up again. And it just take a break to even learn.
Yeah.
So I spend more time with comedians in the space because I watch a lot of foreign stand up, not a lot of Nigeria. So I started spending more time with comedians in the space. So my aim was to learn how to do comedy better, how to perform better. But the more time I spent with them, I started to understand the challenges that were in the comedy industry itself. I started to understand the opportunities in the industry, injustice in the industry, gatekeeping, guys who have been doing this game for like 10 years, 8 years, not being able to make a living, to fend for themselves, and maybe to even fend for their families. Like I said, what's going on here? And I don't get all this experience in business. I like creativity and I like comedy. So I'm now wondering, what's going on? Is there an opportunity here? I really want to help the guys here, right? So, some of them, many of the comedians are choosing this path against the best wishes of their loved ones, against the best of their parents. Why you won't go to comedy? Why are you doing comedy? How are you going to make money? All of that. and still they're now in this industry. So hard for the younger guys and to make it up. It's easier for the guys who are already at the top of their game to keep, getting bigger, but the young guys so hard to break it. And a lot of things that have caused this. So it's not just individuals that have caused this. A lot of stuff that has not gone well in the building and development of the industry that led to that. So that's how I got into comedy. I started perform. I still try to perform a while, but I kind of like now said no. I think I need to play more in behind the scene kind of role. Yeah, yeah. So, but there's also a personal fact that I was like in my late 20s then. So trying to do stand up, I can't figure out before you be good. On average, for you to find your voice in comedy, you've only did it very well. I like to really do stuff where I try to own my craft. That's what and that's kind of because that's kind of thing I wanted to encourage comedians to do. So if I was going to do own my craft, well, it takes at least 10 to 15 years to find your voice. So if I start in my late 20s now, 10 to 15 years, bro, I don't want marry that time. Before I go get pikin, before I go take chop, I go take feed my family, I go take feed my loved ones, my parents. I come I'm not sure this is the best way. So I combined my background, combined my passion, combined all of this together. I said, okay, my best space here is behind the scenes. So that's how I started A Billion Labs, the entertainment company that is into comedy production, distribution, now into management of talent, all that. Yeah. So I hope that was not too long a background story.
It's good because
Yeah.
you made mention of injustice in the industry.
Yes,
in
yes,
space, and
yes.
I would like that you throw some light
Yes.
on what's injustice. Tell me what injustice is
Yes.
in the comedy space, for example.
Yeah. So for instance, the first show that I put together, as production company, was at to put it which was at Lagos Fringe Festival.
Okay.
So Lagos Fringe Festival happens kind of close to the end of the year every year. For a long time, I don't know if they still use Freedom Park. Exactly. So kind of put it. That was the first thing we did, the first show we did. Normally at that time, that was like 2019. Young comedians were not really putting up shows, so you had to wait for more established comedians to organize shows, so you can be exactly. So I think it would have been good if all these shows that you are performing at, you get paid like a reasonable wage, a living wage. But no, most of the platforms, there are quite a number of them who do very well, who pay the performers or the acts, but many of them do not. So what they offered was, oh, I give you exposure. Oh, I give you a platform. The normal stuff now. So I give you a platform, give you exposure. I mean, this guy is good. This guy has been coming for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years. You're still paying him exposure or a platform. Like, no, he needs to be paid. He has a family to feed. He needs to grow in his career. He needs his resources. So those were a number of the those were some of the injustices I was noticing. So when we put together this first show, we called it Caveat Vendito, This Joke is for Sale. The whole idea was that we're going to create a comedy show that is about comedy, that is about comedians, that is about the comedy industry. So every joke, I work with young comedians again that I've spotted in this my hiatus, or this is my break, or this is my disappearance from life as a stand-up comedian myself. So I kind of brought them together. There was a lot of, is this going to work, man? How we just do show small, blah, blah, blah. Well, like the second set of people were trying that. There was another comedy establishment, young guys that put up a show at that time. So it was like the beginning of something new in the industry, where young guys out of nowhere who have not really been are putting up a show. So we put up this show and it was successful. We had 2 sold out nights at Freedom Park. You were there now, you remember? You were there the second night. We did the Kongi Harvest gallery, right? So we did about the comedy industry. So yes, just talking about how jokes of young comedians are being stolen because you are younger. So if a bigger comedian takes your joke and who's going to believe you? Exactly. So that's one of that. And comedians not being paid and being paid with platform and with exposure. So those were a number of things that I noticed. I say, this can be better. There's a lot of opportunities. So that's part of the thing that led me.
I would like to play like the devil's advocate for you. So you said something earlier, and first thing I want to ask about that is it based off your own personal conviction or studies, or is there a stat out there that says that as a comedian, and maybe it applies to other creative, but I'm speaking based on comedy here. As a comedian, you have to have done this, for you to own and find your craft, your sound. between 10 to 15
Yes.
years? Is it based on your own personal
Yeah.
conviction,
Yeah.
opinion, or it's a start or something that you've seen? It might not be like a
Yes.
written
Yes.
law or rule, but you've maybe did a study of the greats and you've seen that pattern.
Yes, yes. No, there is. It's both. It's both. There's a pattern. But then even comedians that, established comedians that respect, that care so much about their craft, have also said it. For instance, there's a comedian called Gary Goldman.
Yeah.
Gary Goldman has probably like maybe 5 or so specials. There was a time where he was doing, he's an American comedian. So the time when he was doing like this Twitter thread. So you write like a tip for a comedian every day. So he did it, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So he did like for 365 days, I think, and he was writing one tip that young comedians can practice and will get them to where they are. One of them I remember clearly was him saying it takes this long to find your voice as a comedian. Not like you will not be funny, not like you will not crack jokes, but for you to really be you.
To say yes.
Yes. Or people
When
hear
the
your
person
joke,
is named, they know this person.
that you be the own audience and we like this kind of,
Yeah.
because voice is just right. Yeah. So it takes that amount of time. Even Louis C.K. So Louis C.K. is also a big comedian, that sells out stadiums and whatnot. One of the biggest comedians in the US. So he also said the same thing. Even like he said, he was doing comedy. He had like an eureka moment where he had been in comedy for I think almost 15 years. And then he was almost giving up on comedy because he felt like it was not funny. He was just repeating the same kind of jokes. He was not getting kind of attention or recognition he wanted. And one day he was sitting in his car and was listening to this, was listening to like an older comedian, George Carlin, I think, talking about, they were interviewing him and he was talking about comedy and how at some point in his own career, he decided to say, every year I'm going to write a new set of material. I'm going to write a new set of material. So he writes this material at the beginning of the year, he performs it throughout the year, he tapes a special, and then he stops performing that material. A new year, he starts another material. And George Carlin was saying in that tape that Louis C.K. was listening to that was how he went into the next phase of his career. So at that point when Louis C.K. was listening to it, I think Louis C.K. was around 15 to 20 years in his career at that point. And when he made that decision that was when Louis C.K. kind of like popped. And he started rising to the peak of the industry.
So the devil's advocate factor.
Yes.
If it takes that long to find you, don't you I hope I don't get don't you think it's only fair?
Yes.
And I say that carefully. That the bigger guys that have done it for a long time and have found themselves. Don't you think that the younger guys should be more on the grateful side to say, yes, I've not done 10 to 15 years to own, so maybe platform is what I need to be paid with. I know that we can open this thing up to start saying the different things and all that stuff, right? So don't you think that is only fair? One. Secondly, are you saying that a billion laughs has now come to say, yes, I know that it takes this long to get this grounded.
Yes.
But we will come in while you're on that journey, walk with you, and hoping that by the time you get to that point, you've already built something, and then we can take it from there. So my question is like in two parts. The first thing is, don't you think it's people, older ones giving them platform, don't you think it's okay because you not own your thing yet? Secondly, are you saying that because that is the thing, you say, okay, yeah, I hear you, but I will set up something that works with these guys to that point?
So I think to answer the first part of your question, I would say the platforms and exposure, paying people with platform exposure, there is it's necessary, but it's necessary depending on what stage of career that particular comedian is. And depending on the motive of the comedian who is putting someone on. Right? And so if you're putting people on because, oh man, I feel like this guy has grown and more people need to see them, right? But they are not yet big enough. They don't have a big enough community of their own, big enough audience of their own, where they can do a show or sell out a show. And you're putting them on so that you can help them now become big enough so they can, fine. If you're putting them on, if you're putting them on, like in a way that, you're carrying, like, and you are recognizing them, like you're carrying them along, That makes sense. But what I found and what kind of happens is that most of the comedians are just being used. So you put all these big shows, because what we even see is that many more established comedians, some of them do not really take so much, they don't put so much work anymore into the craft, because now they've gotten a name, they kind of like gotten to this place, so they have a name that can sell shows, they have a name that can sell their business, right? And so people will always come out for them because of their reputation, right? So once they have that, now they get the guys who are working so much harder and get them on ground, to give a good performance, give a good outing, and then just come in and just kind of like do like the cream, the icing on top of the cake. So that's the issue with that model, right? But there are other ways to people on. For instance, for a long time we didn't really have like very very good comedy clubs, and for comedy clubs are an inevitable part of a comedy industry that wants to grow and that wants to reach world class standard, right? For a long time, we didn't have like viable comedy clubs. It's in recent years, in like 2 to 5 years now, when we've had a number of comedy clubs. We have like JJC Comedy Club, headlined by SLK, one of our finest and most hardworking comedians. They have another Laughter Cave, run by Filippo B, who's also like just a comedy enthusiast. He has like a 9 to 5 proper, and works with like General Electric, but he's just passionate about comedy. Kind of started that, and then we have Live Lounge, which is also run by Bucci, and kind of like basketball kind of has a hand in it, right? So yeah, and then we just started a comedy. We were young, like all these guys are way more successful than us, right? But the idea of a comedy club often is a place where comedians can come and test out material, fine tune material, and then get this material ready for a bigger stage or for an audience where they can sell, where they can, fine tune material, but also build community gradually. So for a long time, we didn't have that. So if many of the comedians in yesteryears have put such things in place, rather than focusing on just big shows where they're just selling tickets and kind of making money, but they were not like focused on building those cocoons where they can also improve their craft, but also help young guys to also improve their craft, to make people see that comedy is not just coming on stage and just being funny. It's not just magic. People actually do the work. That would have made people appreciate the craft. Because truth be told, there was a time in Nigeria where, if you look at mainstream, cultural mainstream, you're in the music industry now, you guys are enjoying your time. There was a time where comedy was the main cultural good, like in this country. Comedy was the main thing. And then not even musical, Nollywood. And then before you now start talking about music, right? Even recently, I don't know, Rhythm Unplugged, they released a video, maybe early this year or last year, where they kind of like did a throwback to when it was comedy show, then they'll now put music inside. Yes, comedians are the main thing in Rhythm Unplugged. Yes, it was like the main thing. But like, look at all the past few years now. Where there's no more comedy again. Because it started reducing. It got to a point where they now started having music mixed with comedy. And I got to a point where it was mostly music and some comedy. And now no more comedy anymore. So Night of a Thousand Laughs, there people used to come from all over, like UK, US, travel down for Night of the Laughs to happen like 3 to 4 times a year. It was like, if you ask any millennial or any older Gen Z today, they know what Night of a Thousand Laughs is. Yes. And sometimes even when I try to explain what a billion laughs is, I tell them, do you know Night of a Thousand? I say yes. So a billion laughs is trying to be Night of a Thousand Laughs for the modern era. People kind of like get. So you see, so it's not, so that's that. But in terms of what a billion laughs is doing, like you're saying, yes, when we started, we're just putting on shows, producing shows, distributing shows. But then we started noticing that, okay, if we really want to do work that actually transforms the comedy industry, we have to really get closer and closer to working with comedians. So we've gotten to a point where we have now fine-tuned what exactly we are doing, what exactly we are about. And we say our work is to help comedians create the best work for audiences that care. So when we did shows, yes, we bring guys together, they write, our thematic shows. People write like new jokes around a theme over a couple of months and then we'll come and present. So that was good. But then when I got to the point where they say, Let's start now identifying particular comedians that we can work with for a longer time. We say, okay, yes, let's start now distribute. Let's focus on distributing their content. Now we kind of got to the point where it's okay. That is not just enough. Let's actually bring some comedians under our care that we bring into some kind of management development deal. You know, where we're not okay, we're working with you not just for the period of your show. We're not just helping you to write a good show and sell your show and distribute your show. No, we want to actually make you a better comedian. Not just in terms of your craft, but also in terms of the business and
So you're
branding.
bringing infrastructure
Yes.
into their career.
Exactly. So that's what we're doing now. So that's like we started last year where we started, working with a particular talent, Desmond Osabo. I think he's one of the finest Nigerian comedians that we have. I think he's world class, right? And then this year we kind of like brought more guys on board. Like we have Kola Media, and then we have other guys that we brought on board and are working with casually to say, okay, we're not just bidding your show, we want to bid you as a talent. And I feel like, yes, the more we're able to do that, we feel like one comedian at a time, we can change the game.
Really interesting.
Yes.
I mean, we've had a lot of talks around structure in the creative industry, and I think this is what structure looks like. This is what structure looks like. I'm very impressed with what you guys are doing. But you said a lot of things, a lot to unpack, right? But one thing,
because I would like to know, like, what do you think that? Because you guys are ahead now. We used to be ahead of you guys music. Because you're a music man now. So I want to know, like, I want to know. Because I'm always observing the music industry. I'm saying, man, what can I learn? How did the mighty fall? I'm always asking myself, how did the mighty fall? And how the young boys rise? How did young men rise? Like these small boys, how did they rise up? So when I rise up and reason beyond what comedy could ever be. So what do you think comedy can learn from music? So what do you think is there? And if there's anything that music can learn from comedy, I don't know. But for now, what is it like? What do you think that comedy can learn from music?
Try to answer that.
Yes.
You said a lot of things.
Yes.
I hear a couple of things. I hear that you study a lot.
Yes.
I don't think it's something, and again, I'm just speaking, I don't think it's something a lot of creatives, and I'm saying creatives, not just comedy, music. I don't think people study the people that have come before them and the current states of their crafts. I don't think people do not study. And I think that history and even present realities, helps in terms of how you should then find structure. So that's something that I think that you guys are doing so well. And you studying is crazy. And you said something. You're using this word a lot, writing. Writing. I think a lot of people believe or think that comedians just think about the joke and they keep it and they go on stage, or even sometimes right there on stage the joke pops into their head. Why do people really sit down and write comedy, and practice, and you put in that work and say, I'm writing, I'm adjusting, maybe I should use this word here, I should use this word. Is that a thing?
So I think writing happens differently for different acts, right? I think I've seen basketball do this. I've been at shows where I think there was a show that Ikel Sakidoa was hosting a particular comedy night by Ike. So it was in like a taping one of those nights. I don't even think basketball was never one of the acts. But basketball just said, okay, and I think he was working like on a tour and said, let me come perform here. So he came with his guys, and they had a camera because I was standing at the back. I didn't come early. So I was standing at the back, and they put like a camera just somewhere I can capture basketball's performance. And when I see him perform, I think he wrote some stuff coming on stage. But I think a lot of what was in was riffing and just working it out from his head live. Like, just he had these ideas. He had these funny ideas, and he was going to come and explore them live on stage. And he was capturing them so that we will go back and go and watch and say, okay, this one I eat, this one makes sense, this one makes sense. And then he can now put together a solid material. That is a form of writing. So not every comedic act, a lot of them put pen to paper and they kind of like write and put down. Jerry Seinfeld, he's still like the richest comedian ever because he's not really as much comedy anymore, but he did stand up for a long time. But then he had this Seinfeld show, it's a popular show that he kind of wrote, that he put together that was successful. Seinfeld had one, he had like a documentary where he wrote like constantly almost every day, and he kept the notes of all of his jokes that he had ever written. And this guy he did comedy for decades. Some people are like that. Some people are like as intentional and very like that. But someone like basketball or someone like Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle, he writes, but many times he just goes to a comedy club again. You see the essence of a comedy club. He goes to a comedy club unannounced, even though he's a big act. He goes there and he just goes on performing for hours, sometimes 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. He's done like, and then he records them and he goes back and his guys came with him and they will tell him, there was one thing you said at so time. This was good, this was good. And then pieces that he does that comedy club tour in different number of places and then kind of picks out the best parts, kind of reworks them. And that's how he now beats the 1 hour that he now does to a larger crowd, more refined, and then tapes and then puts on Netflix. So there are different kinds of it. So, but there's a process. The best acts definitely go through a form of writing or putting together their material that we see. No, at all. It's not. Yeah, it isn't. Yes.
So back to your question, what can the comedy industry learn from the music industry?
From what you've seen, and we've worked together. We've worked together for a number of years now.
Whatever.
Yeah, proud.
I mean, it's not about me here.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So, I just think that, we have a lot of things that we yap about and complain about in the music industry generally.
Yes.
But I think that, in recent times, there's kind of been a very significant growth in terms of structure. Right. People are going to see that I need to actually have a team around me to, develop a lot more. Music, and I mean music as far as a career, has largely stopped being about vibes. The song can be vibes, but you see that vibes is coated with structure. There's a manager, there's this, there's that. People are learning to say no to certain things. People are also learning to say yes rapidly to a couple of things, right? So everything still boils down to structure. And I think that one thing the music industry have over comedy is that we kind of have it's easier for us to put our work out than comedians. So, for example, maybe some comedians do streaming, like they put out their stuff on streaming. People would rather maybe listen to podcasts, music. Who wants to go on the streaming platform and start listening to comedy? Back in the day, when it was big, we had this conversation. People we have their stuff on tapes.
Yes.
As you are driving from Ojotubega to Malini, there is, you are listening to everybody's laughing. There was that distribution in a sense. Now, if you're not putting people together in a space to do a show, how else? But for music, I can actually just have a melody or whatever. It's easy to record today. You just put your focus right, producer, or you go on YouTube, find a beat, put it there, put your stuff out, and put it on Spotify. And then so I think that, and which everything again still ties to structure, right? So I think that the comedy industry became so comfortable that they refused to evolve, right? As time went on, as we moved into the streaming era and stuff. But the music industry kind of nest that, and they went with it, right? So that's what it is. So I think it's still all about like access to whatever, and everything again is still like a structural thing, right? So maybe if comedy can find a way to ensure that their material goes out easily and reaches more people, maybe that will maybe listen again. Music, even when comedy was big, there was still music featuring. So maybe now comedy is big, feature music. Maybe that was what will get people to go and listen to it on Spotify. Maybe tell your jokes and then there's a background song. I don't know. This free game. So I mean, just find a way to ensure that people have access to it. And I think you guys do distribution through your website.
Sure.
So you guys have like certain specials and stuff like that. So check out their website, billionlabs.com, and you'll see stuff. So improve on distribution, improve on making sure that things go out and it reaches a larger audience. And I think you guys have a very solid community. I've been to shows.
I'm trying our best.
Thank you for the work you do in the industry. And yes, I mean, Damilola looks like he's humble. He's doing a lot of work, educating, improving. He has a coach for his comedians. For his talent. He has a coach that coaches them, that does them with writing and stuff. And that's huge. That's huge. Thank you so much.
Shout out to Joshua King. He's the coach. We call him the dean of comedy. Again, that's like the structure you're talking about in the system. So he's like, he's good at performing stand-up. He's good at emceeing. but he's best at just guiding comedians and making their jokes better and putting their hours together.
like
And that's
development,
boy is largely underrated. People don't really like rate that kind of gifts. But even yeah, but you know, in more developed in climbs, you know, industry like those talents are really really hyped. Like all the daily shows or Trevor Noah, even Kevin Hart, when he goes on his tours, he has like a team of writers that help him develop his jokes, right? So that kind of talent is, you know, very very vital. We're going to take it to the next level. So I try
I
my
mean, I
best.
would
Thank you.
have loved to ask questions about like stand-up, skits, and
Yes.
all that, but maybe next time. Are
Oh
you
yeah,
open
no.
to coming back?
Oh yeah, sure, no, sure. Anything for my
What
brother.
are you
Anything for my
doing?
brother.
Thank you so much,
Oh
Danny.
yeah,
Thank
no,
you, thank you,
no,
thank you,
no.
thank you. Really
Thanks.
appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir,
Thank
no,
you for coming.
no. My
Thank you.
pleasure.
All right, guys. So yes, there's a game that we normally play.
Okay now.
The grit
Yes.
game. Grit is synonymous to hustle,
Mhm.
right? Grit, like yeah. So kind of see like the hustle game. If you were not a creative entrepreneur working in comedy, right?
Yes.
What would you have been? So remove everything comedy. You can't work in the comedy
Come in,
industry.
come in.
What would you have been? What would
Ah, if I'm not working,
Well, you've burnt bridges. You can't even say, oh yeah, this
you
is
know, I'll probably would be, maybe I'll be a vocational minister actually. Like I'll be like a what people would normally call a full-time pastor, perhaps. Maybe I would have been that, or I was, you know, I like curating events normally, so it doesn't have to be comedy. You know, I can be like a creative producer, just designing like live shows and experiences. Yeah, that's also something else.
interesting.
Yeah,
You just don't want to leave because I think being a
that
pastor
kind
has
of
something
done.
to do with creativity.
Oh
So,
yes. Maybe that's something that kind of done.
cool. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yes, man. Yes, man.
All right,
Yes,
guys.
sir.
Yeah. See you next time. Cheers.
Yeah.